Yeah. Hello, everybody. Hello, and welcome to the autumn edition of Your Overseas Home Virtual. You've probably already seen me before if you've been at the previous Spain webinars. But this one is covering the whole thing about buying in Spain, from getting a currency sorted to talking to the estate agent, to getting your lawyer organized, and going to the notary's office and getting those keys in your hand. So if you've got any questions about the buying process, do put them into the chat box on the right hand side. My name is Christopher Nye. I'm the senior editor at Your Overseas Home and also Spain Property Guides. And well, myself personally and Spain Property Guides, and then more latterly Your Overseas Home, have been helping people to buy in Spain for pretty much 20 years now. And we've seen it change from the wild days of the early 2000s to the much more safe and organized days that we have now. So you can pretty much buy with confidence, especially with the three experts that we've got with us today, who are Trevor Charnley from Smart Currency Exchange, Thurin Sharifi from the Spanish Estate Agent, and Emma Belgam from JLCA and Associates Lawyers. And we got geographically, we're covered from the Costa del Sol to the Costa Blanca and London, indeed. So that's enough about me. What I'm going to do is I'm going to bring each person in who's going to explain a little bit about their area, and then we're going to ask some questions. So do please put those questions in. And let's start off with Trevor. Tell us a little bit about Smart Currency Exchange and how you help buyers in Spain, and some of the main things that we should be thinking about.
Absolutely. So thanks, Chris, for the introduction. So yeah, Smart Currency Exchange. So much like Your Overseas Home business, we've been in operation for about 20 years, and we help tens of thousands of customers who are buying overseas each and every year. Currency is not the most exciting part about buying your overseas property, but it is essential. When it comes to actually maneuvering that money from A to B, most people will gravitate towards their high street bank as being their kind of go-to. That's how you send money internationally. But actually having a currency specialist like Smart Currency Exchange is absolutely critical to getting that money from A to B to complete on that overseas property. Main reason for that is that you are exposed to currency movements. So from the date that you go out and you perhaps go to see Shirin and go and see one of their properties, you find that dream property and you have that offer accepted. You could be looking at a completion time of perhaps 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, perhaps even longer if it's an off-plan property, for example. And all during that time, you're exposed to currency movements. So for example, on day one, you have your offer accepted, say it's 250,000 euros. At that point, that could cost you £200,000 to purchase that property. Now, one would expect that on a given year, sterling euro moves approximately 10% over a 12-month period. So one would reasonably expect that if you're going through, say, a 6-month buying cycle, you may see currency movements of 5, 6, 7% during that 6-month period rather. And at which point you could find yourself in a position where you've agreed your price on day one in euros. That's going to cost you an amount of sterling on day one. And come completion date, you could suddenly have to find yourself having to find an extra 10, 15, 20,000 pounds to complete on that overseas property. So when engaging with somebody like ourselves, we will help you from the absolute outset. So we'll help you get an account open before you go on that viewing trip. We'll lay out all your options that are available to you, some of which may involve fixing your exchange rate, some of which may involve leaving your exchange rates afloat. But we will give you those options up front, which means that you can go on your viewing trip without having to worry about the money movements afterwards. You know exactly what you're going to do before you go, and then at which point, if you find that dream property, you can place that offer with confidence that you know how you're going to make those currency exchanges and international payments afterwards. So that's why it's such an essential part of the overseas buying journey.
Okay, but if I go to my high street bank, I'm assuming I can find a branch open, but if I can find a branch open, I can just bang on the doors if there's any any problem. I don't know who you are, although you do have offices in Spain, don't you?
We do, yeah. We've got a couple of offices in Spain. So one in the Costa del Sol region, one in the Costa Blanca region. We've also got people dotted around other areas of the country as well.
But if I'm sending my life savings or the proceeds of my home via you, how do I know, how can I be completely sure of the security of the transaction?
Sure. So I mean, there's lots of different indicators that you should look at, and a company like ourselves, for example. So we've obviously been in an operation for 20 years, as I've just described. We're regulated here in the UK through the FCA. It is no mean feat to acquire that kind of regulation. It really is a tough process that we continue to endure year in, year out. Check reviews is always a good example as well. Go and have a look at Trustpilot. Smart Currency are one of the highest rated firms out there for foreign exchange and international payments. There's thousands of client reviews on there, so do make sure that you check that out. And also I'd recommend that you have a look at a company's finances. Again, limited companies in the UK will have to submit their accounts on a year-by-year basis. So do make sure you go and download these accounts on Companies House, have a look at us, and you'll be able to see that we're a cash generative business. We're a company that is not going anywhere. An important part of our regulation as well is that all client monies have to be held in client safeguarding accounts. It's not quite escrow, but it's a similar principle. So in effect, any customer monies that we're exchanging or sending on their behalf, they never form part of our working capital, so they never form part of our current account or balance sheets, etc. We have to hold clients segregated, safeguarded accounts with tier 1 banks. So we operate with the likes of Barclays, Lloyds, etc. So all customer monies are always held in tier 1 banks in safeguarded accounts, which don't formulate part of what we do.
Okay. Now we'll come on to our next experts very soon, but there is one question that's come in early. So John says, what's the difference between putting the money into a Spanish bank account and drawing from there?
Well, sorry, what's the difference in putting money to a Spanish bank account and drawing from there?
Yes, I guess paying the money into a Spanish bank account and then when the property purchase goes through, just paying it from there.
Yeah, with the again, that's an option that's available. We operate in the middle, if you will. So if you want to pay that money into your Spanish bank account, we will still help you with the exchange between your UK account and your Spanish bank account. So where you send the money once you exchange it with us is down to you. If you wanted to go into your Spanish bank account, leave it sat there and then pay it upon completion, that's absolutely fine. If you want to hold the money with us, that's absolutely fine. If you want to send the money out to your solicitor or whoever it may be, that's absolutely fine. Why a lot of people will use a product called a forward contract, so where they agree a price on day one for delivery on completion date, for example, they may use that because they might not necessarily want to have that money sat in their Spanish bank account doing nothing for 6 months, 9 months. They may prefer to have the money sat here in the UK in stocks, shares, some kind of investment product or whatever it may be. So that's often why a lot of customers will use a forward contract as opposed to exchanging the money, moving it to Spain and then leaving it sat there for 6 to 9 months, not doing very much.
Great. Okay. Well, we'll come back to you as questions arise. But let's move on to Shirin from the Spanish estate agent. Tell us a little bit about you and the company and where you operate, and then just sort of give us an intro into the market at the moment.
Sure. Good morning, everybody. My name is Shirin Sharifi. I'm the sales director for the Spanish estate agent, and I've been working in real estate on the Costa del Sol for over 23 years. The areas that we cover on the coast is sort of between Malaga and Gibraltar and the inland areas all in between. So areas like Mijas Costa, Fuengirola, all the way to Marbella, Benavis, Estepona, and so on. But it's quite a large area. So we have an office in Estepona and opening more very soon. But we have several staff speaking several languages, as we do attract clients from all over the world. The types of properties that we offer is anything and everything, simply because of the special way that we work. So we have properties, the usual 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom properties with sea views and so on, or we have farmhouses, fincas, land, the big mansions and so on. And the reason why we have such a big range of properties is the very unique way that we work. We act as a property finder, and what we do is really listen to what the client is looking for. And we have access to absolutely every single property that's for sale on the coast. So a client can have a conversation with me once and explain to me what they want, and I listen, and I try to do my job as best as I can, and to go out there and find what it is they're looking for. I get to spend time with the clients. I get to really understand them, get to know what their likes and dislikes are, little things that they didn't even think about actually when they were looking for their home, and their priorities seem to change. So having spent that time with them, I get to really understand and source properties a lot better. So we having to spend that time as well, and having lived in Spain myself for so long, obviously we can talk a lot about not just the buying process and the properties, but also the lifestyle. I can introduce you to all the little nooks and crannies, the little areas that you'd never find on your own, because I'm driving you around and showing you the area as much as the actual properties themselves. So we will spend a lot of time talking together before the trip. We'll fine tune the list of properties that you're going to see. You send me properties, whether it's from our website or any other website at all, I'll still be able to find all the information for you. And I make all the appointments, I do all the driving, I pick you up from your hotel and take you and show you all the properties that we've shortlisted. And we introduce you to the lawyers. Emma will be speaking later on. We take you to open a bank account. We do everything that you need before, during, and after the actual sales process itself. So we really hold your hand throughout the whole process, and hopefully get to know you for a long time. So in terms of lifestyle, I can tell you my drive to work in the morning, the usual. I drive down, my views are straight out to Gibraltar, Africa. So three countries and 2 continents. My drive to work is along the Mediterranean. And yeah, I can tell you even now the weather's fantastic. So yeah, okay. That's what we do.
Now, I would imagine post-Brexit, I don't suppose anyone's coming out to buy at the moment, are they? Is it how's the market?
It's bizarre. I have to tell you, when the decision on Brexit was taken, yeah, we all thought, slash our wrist time, it's the end of the world. But I have to tell you, after the 2-week shock of that, people really started to think about things, and really that's when the market really started to take off, strangely enough. And you have to remember, we don't just rely on the UK market, of course not. We have a huge number of Scandinavians buying, the French and the Belgians are buying, Dutch, Germans, and now we're also finding, due to the currency, the Americans and the Canadians are really coming over in droves to buy. But anyway, the Brexit didn't kill off the English market. If anything, people were then looking to move to southern Spain and so on. And then, of course, COVID hit. And again, we thought, oh, my God, what else can happen? And then what happened with that was we were doing a lot of remote sales, a lot of remote viewings. We had to change the way we worked. And it was incredible how desperate people were to find something. So that was, as I said, during COVID, we were doing video calls, we were doing video viewings, we were selling property via video links. And then now when the floodgates opened and people could travel, then of course things have been busy ever since then as well. So our market always shifts and adapts.
Yeah. And you've been helped in Andalusia in particular with the various tax advantages now, I believe.
Absolutely. We're really lucky. Andalusia is trying to become the most tax efficient district in Spain. So whereas the buying costs, for example, if you were to buy a second-hand property in a resale property in the past, there was a 3-tier transfer tax level, which was 8%, 9%, and 10%. But that's all been scrapped, and it's a flat rate of 7% now. So there's savings of up to 3% on just the buying costs. So the stamp duty on a new property has been reduced as well from 1.5% to 1.2%. They've scrapped wealth tax completely in Andalusia. So people that were worried about possibly taking residency and being taxed on their worldwide assets don't necessarily have to worry anymore, because the wealth tax has been reduced to zero in effect. And of course, there's some changes with the inheritance tax as well, which it's at the €1 million level. So yeah.
Okay, brilliant. So let's think about people who are coming out to do a viewing trip. So firstly, people tend to buy, I think we assume in the new year, but I would guess that now's not a bad time to come out and make a cheeky offer. Or are there no offers?
No, it really depends. It's it's like any market, any property that's well priced and a good presented property, people want to view, and you know, I've had properties where we take offers on, but not the 10% or the big amounts that we you know, people think. It's not that level at all. We do try to make offers. The sale we did yesterday, for example, the property was on at 425. I think we got it for 405 or something, like, you know, so there's that kind of offer to be made, and those kind of prices agreed. And on the larger level, we just had a sale at the property was on at 925, and we got the 950, and we got the offer accepted at 925. So that's the one market. But then of course we have had properties where we've had to go over asking price because of the level of interest in that property. You know, 6 viewings happening in one day. But I'm not saying that, you know, it's like you know, the prices have gone crazy. It's just very, very stable. It's not that you can come in and offer half or anything like that. It's just not like that way at all.
Okay, so working through the process, we've spoken to Trevor about our currency. We're coming out to view properties really anytime. Are there any times of the week that you would advise not coming out?
Yeah, I mean, the lovely thing about Spain, I think, is that the weekends are still quite sacred. You know, they still have a very family orientated lifestyle. So nothing happens, certainly with notaries and lawyers and so on at the weekend. I know some, you know, Emma would be very happy to meet clients at the weekend, but there's very little we can do. For example, power of attorney cannot be done on the weekend. Opening bank accounts cannot be done at the weekend, that sort of thing. So and a lot of agents, we work at the weekends, but a lot of local agents, let's say, won't work on the weekends. So my advice would be, even if you were to come at the weekend, please do give us 3 working days, if possible. 2 at the very minimum, because we have to view the properties. Then if we've done our job properly and found you the right properties, then we have to second view. And then of course we have to spend some time with a lawyer to go through the legalities. You then have to go with the lawyer to do a power of attorney if you haven't done it remotely, which is another possibility, but it is a lot cheaper to do it while you're in Spain. And of course the power of attorney is done in front of a notary, and that they're only open Monday to Friday. So yeah, I would ask that you give us weekdays if possible.
Sure. Okay. Now, what do we need to bring with us when we come on that?
That's passport.
Yes. Well, you need that anyway. Yeah.
No, you need your passport obviously for the power of attorney and so on. And I have to tell you, I'm telling all my clients now, please be in a position, if you are coming to find something, then you have to pay for it. And we do ask for a reservation deposit to take it off the market. We take that, it's €6,000 or 1% of the asking price, whichever is greater, of the sales price, sorry. And that's held until the initial legalities are, or the searches are done, and it's non-refundable unless there is a legal issue with the property that cannot be resolved. So we want our clients to be very sure. But yeah, I mean, that's a great system, because it stops anybody from gazumping. because once we have that deposit, we've agreed the price, we have a reservation contract which agrees the price and the payment schedule, and that means that the owner can't accept higher offers and so on and so forth. So it's a really safe way. I know in England nobody knows if the sale's going to go through even until the last day. So we take the reservation amount, we sign the reservation form, then roughly 2 to 3 weeks later, depending on what we've agreed and negotiated, we the buyer pays 10% and signs the proper private purchase contract. Okay, and that's pretty solid then. And then in that contract you agree a completion date, and that can be anything between 2 weeks and 6 weeks, whatever afterwards, however we negotiate.
Okay, and so Trevor, if you're coming out on your viewing trip, I know the temptation would be just to, or we think, oh, it's a small amount, so we'll just do it on a credit card or something. But I imagine it would be a much better idea to do it via you. In which case, how does one pay that 6,000? How is that organised?
Well, it's really straightforward, and as I said earlier, it's this is why it's best to get your account open in advance. So get your currency account open, and have that conversation with your trader, so that you've got really clearly planned. Okay, I'm going to go on my viewing trip, and if I find my property, place an offer. This is what I'm going to have to do, and this is how I'm going to go about it. But it's really straightforward. So if you've got your account open in advance, when you go and find that property and you place that offer, have it accepted, place your deposit. That's really simple and easy. You can either give us a call, and one of our traders will be able to book that deposit for you over the telephone. You'll need to send the sterling equivalent to us, and we'll send the euros straight out to the relevant estate agent or solicitor, wherever the money needs to go. Or indeed, you can do it on our app, which is really simple as well for some of those smaller transactions. But I would say that it's probably best to do it with your trader, because it forms part of your overall plan, and it also helps you go through that kind of first transaction with something outside of your bank, gets you used to it so that you understand how it works, and gives you that confidence. Obviously, you're going to want to get that money with the estate agent as quickly as possible, so that they can see that it's gone, it's there, and they can obviously take it off the market for you. So I would say get the account open in advance. Will help you understand exactly the process that you're going to follow when you go out on that viewing trip. And then once you found that property, we'll execute for you and get the money there straight away.
If I could just explain the importance of that deposit. For example, we had a sale in the last couple of days where the clients had agreed on a property, but there were 2 other second viewings happening later that day. And the only way to secure that property for them, they literally did the transaction via Smart, but they did it there and then. They had proof that they'd made the transaction, and quickly made sure the contract was signed, and our clients got the property. But it's that kind of way at the moment when a good property comes up, and that's where Smart can really help, is that we can show that it doesn't have to land in the account, but as long as they can show they've made the transfer, then fantastic. We can take the property off the market then.
Okay, we have had a question from Sarah asking about, does Smart Currency charge a fee, or do you make your money via the exchange rate?
Yeah, she's absolutely right. We make our money via exchange rates. So in effect, we buy multi-billions of pounds worth of currency every year, and we make our money when we sell that on to our customers. So we make our money in the exchange rate difference.
Okay, great. But I have noticed your reviews on Trustpilot are pretty fantastic.
Yeah, they are. We work really hard to do that. You'll often find that customers they're quite happy to leave you a negative review when something goes wrong. For example, I'm sure you experience that with lots of things that you do. So we work really hard for to maintain those Trustpilot reviews, but it is ultimately a consequence of the service that we deliver to customers. Going through an overseas buying journey can be really tricky and can be really challenging, and of course, Google has a wealth of information, but to be frank, you're far better speaking to experts. You can find lots of people going down real in-depth rabbit holes. We speak to customers all day, every day, who are trying to educate them on exchange rates and how that's going to impact them when it comes to their overseas property purchase. But actually, there's so much misinformation on the internet that by utilizing an expert, we're going to help you get to the answers and get you to the options that you can that are going to make the most sense for you as quickly as possible. And the result of which, of course, is that you get fantastic reviews on the back end because you're really hand holding these customers through the full journey.
Okay, excellent. Right now, waiting patiently has been Emma, who we spoke to in an earlier session about visas and residency, but now we're talking about the buying process. So tell us a little bit about what you and what JLCA does, and just sort of introduce us to the buying process.
Okay, thanks very much, Chris. Okay, JLCA Lawyers, we are a Spanish legal firm. We've been operating over 20 years. We are specifically Spanish lawyers. Our main office, which is where I work, is based in just outside of Alicante. We also have offices in Madrid, in the UK, and in the States as well, based in Miami. Within our offices, we have the Spanish lawyers, but we also have a team of administrators that speak natively various different languages, including myself, obviously, as a British person, but we cover many other areas such as French, German, Scandinavians, and others. The idea being is that it's not just about translating, it's about interpreting it and being able to relate what's happening and what you're doing and what the process is in a way that is clear to you and you can relate to something at home. Transparency is just key to such a big move and such a big purchase. Within our firm, although we do specialize a great deal in the extrajudicial work, such as property purchase, residency applications, and so on, we are actually a full service firm. So we do have civil and criminal departments, which basically means no matter what happens, we've always got the right legal advice in-house within our firm. In terms of the buying process, it's kind of echoing a lot of what Shirin has said. When you've found the right property, you are going to be paying an initial deposit to reserve that property and take it off of the market. The amount of that varies depending on the autonomous region. Shirin has explained what it is specifically in the Costa del Sol and Andalusia regions. A bit further north and around different areas, it's typically between 3,000 and 6,000 euros for initial deposit. The idea being, once you've got that part done, we would always recommend that that's the point where you engage with your lawyers if you haven't done already before. From that point, then we will be checking on all of the paperwork for that property to make sure everything is named as it should be, registered. It should be between the different registry office, that the amounts coincide, and that there aren't any infractions against the local town halls, etc. The idea being that we move towards the most important part of this process, which is the private purchase contract. It is so important that this is done correctly because the clauses within that contract are binding to notary. So if there are specific conditions that need to be included within that, specific to the buyer or to the seller, they need to be in there. Or if there is paperwork that must be provided in order to continue, but they need more time to do so, we can add it within that contract as well, which basically means, worst case scenario, if something went wrong, you're able to pull out and get back that 10% deposit that you would normally pay at that point. Going forward, we continue with all of that paperwork. We making sure that the client has their NIE numbers, as every person that signs a deed signs on the deed will need their NIE, and power of attorney if they wish for us to deal with this on their behalf, which can be arranged either in the UK, the country of origin, or in Spain, depending on what the circumstances are and whether they're in Spain or not. Finally, we'll be looking to the signing at notary. And it's a very important point, is whether you're signing with a cash purchase or whether you're using a Spanish mortgage. In Spain, for the last few years, it was a change back in around 2020. You now have to sign twice at a notary if you have a Spanish mortgage, which basically means your lawyers are going to be going to the notary, first of all, with the signing of the mortgage, and then secondly, for the actual final signing. Once we've completed the final signing, that is when the property is going to be in your name. And following this, we will then re-register, arrange payment of all the taxes that are appropriate, and make sure all of the bills are then set up as direct debits from your own Spanish account, and inscribe the deed at registry. So that basically completes the process.
Okay, and how long will that take, and how much will it cost?
It's in terms of how long, it depends on the buyer and the seller. It can be done within a month if everything's in order, and that's what both parties want to do. It can be extended to 6-8 weeks. We've even had some that had a planned finalization in 3 or 4 months following. It all depends on those involved. With regards to what it will cost, this all is very dependent on what you're buying, where you're buying, because each of the autonomous regions has different taxes applied, and also whether there's Spanish mortgage or not, whether you are buying off plan or resale, because then the taxes change as well. So in terms of what it will cost, we would always say, contact me, let me know exactly what you're planning to do, and then we can just give you a breakdown of what that will be. We work on a fixed fee basis. We don't charge percentages, so we like to keep the cost as low as we can.
Okay. Now, we've got some questions coming through. So let me start off with one from Sarah. Do you recommend a survey before buying? Now, she's asked Shirin, but it'd be interested to get both the estate agent and the lawyer's point of view. A survey, yes.
It very much depends, and it's something have been asked a lot more recently. First of all, depending on the age of the property, a lot of the properties have already got building guarantees within them that are still active. So you've got that kind of level of protection. You might have an older property that you're looking for. It depends on the person. If they would like to have a survey done, then it's not a problem to arrange. And we've worked with companies that are actually RICS approved from the UK and can do reports in English. So the option is there for people if they want to do them.
Shirin, would you agree?
Yeah, I think it's but there's different types of surveys, isn't there, Emma? I know in England they do a much more in-depth survey, and either one is not a problem to do. But I would say, there's a lot of legal checks that are done on properties beforehand anyway to see where they're built. Are they built near a river, or are they, that sort of thing as well, that can affect the movement, I suppose, of a property. But I would say as well, if the property's been stood there for, I don't know, however long, for 80 odd years and it's still fine, we're talking about country properties here, and there's no cracks or whatever, then obviously that's a sign. But yeah, I mean, if we want the clients to be as comfortable as possible, and therefore we can offer architects and all sorts.
Great. Okay. A question from John. I have seen a property in the Costa Calida that I'm interested in, but it's a bank sale. Do you have any idea how long the process would take? And he needs to sell his property in the UK to fund it. So
well, it depends on the bank. I mean, I've Spanish banks to buy bank properties are notoriously difficult. I'll be very honest. I try. They're not always the best buy either, because the banks have to have a certain amount they have to recoup. Whereas if you have a vendor that's flexible and you can talk to and you can negotiate with, that's a different thing. But the banks don't. Then you can't negotiate with them. It's a very, very complicated procedure that they go through, and sometimes you don't know to the last minute whether you've got it or somebody else has got it, and sometimes you think you've got it and actually they've sold it to somebody else. It's notoriously difficult to buy through a bank. Now, the time schedule, again, depends on the bank, the situation of the property, and what you negotiate with them in terms of the time schedule. Emma, I'm sure you've got experience with bank sales as well.
Yeah, very much the same. It's very dependent on the situation, which bank is involved, and what the history was in terms of the property itself. From our point of view, obviously, we can have a little look further into the legal procedure that's gone behind and see how long things have moved along there. Once you're in terms of speaking with the bank, it's just reaching the agreement and making sure that everything is confirmed.
Okay. Now here's an interesting one from Peter. This is aimed at Shirin. Do you cater for properties that accommodate horses and sheep being brought over?
Absolutely.
I know it's a bit niche.
Absolutely.
But...
if you mean yes, absolutely. I mean, there's not really a type of property that we don't cater for. The only thing we don't have in our area, for example, we don't have the cave houses in our area, but if we did, we would sell them. It's just that, as I say, this very unique way that we work. We have access to every single property that is on the market. That's one of the most important things I try to get across to clients, is that point, in that you don't need to have this conversation a million times with loads of agents. I have everything come to me and I will find you that property.
I also smiled at the question because I know that Emma has exactly that kind of lifestyle. Do you not have living slightly in the country with some horses?
Yeah, I do live in a countryside property. It's I moved a few years ago, so rural life is a little bit different. We have a neighbour that has horses that we help looking after. I'd love to actually bring them over to mine, but I think the dogs would have something to say about that.
Well, certainly, we're seeing at your obviously so lots of interest in people, but it isn't just the seaside property; it's the whole lifestyle, isn't it?
100%, 100%. I mean, literally, we've got golfing properties. We've got obviously we have beachside properties, but fincas, equestrian properties. As I keep saying, land, plots for sale, that anything we can cater for. This is why we're passionate about what we do. I have one guy that's a specialist for inland properties. Actually, we are passionate about what we do. We try to listen as best as we can to what you're looking for, and we'll find it, no problem.
Are there issues in buying though between buying a rural land or perhaps something right on the front?
And again, will correct me if I'm wrong, but there's huge differences. You have rustic land where you can build something like 1% of the land you can build on. You have urban land, which can be anything between 20, 30 and 50% of the land that you can build on. It really depends where it is, what classification it's got. I know it will correct me as I say. But the problem we have with certain types of rustic properties is that they were built before the registration of the first occupation license was in use. So some properties of a certain age won't have a first occupation license, which is something that people were adamant on getting before, but now we realize there's different levels of. Some properties can be 100% legal. Some properties will need certain square meters registered because there's work been done on the property and they need to be, and some properties you have to look at the boundaries. There's 3 meter rule where we are anyway, where a villa has to be built more than 3 meters away from its boundary, that sort of thing, which, as I said, the lawyers can, but there are solutions to a lot of these. What we can't find solutions for are properties that are completely illegal, but of course the lawyers will look into that for you and beforehand. So
okay,
well, I was going to say very much as Sharon has said, but it is very area specific and property specific. You can buy purchase a piece of land that has a property on it, but you may not be able to have permission to do further building. Any property we can find out, and this is part of the searches that we do and investigations that we do as lawyers, is what is there, what exists, and what is able to be done in the future as well, so that you know that you're not buying something that you can't do what you're planning to do in the future. And as I say, it's very specific to each area, and there are exceptions that have been put for very old properties that have existed for a long time. The one thing is, and it's important, this, properties can be bought without the second occupation license, habitation certificate, cedula, all of the different interpretations of this. They can be purchased, but what you need to understand is when somebody does sign for these properties, for example, mortgages won't be granted. So if they wanted to sell to somebody that had a mortgage, you wouldn't be able to do so. So it has restrictions in different ways, not just on the initial purchase.
Okay, thanks.
There are other documents that can be obtained to get the mortgage. I mean, I know there are certain properties.
It very much depends. There are places which will just say flat no. So it's really important to know exactly what you've got and that it is what you want. As I say, there are situations when it's not a problem for the person that's purchasing, as long as they're crystal clear and understand what that means.
Absolutely, yeah. No,
but in other circumstances, if you've got specific plans, then you need to know that to make sure that you don't get caught out later on.
The other thing that the first occupation can have an effect on is the the tourist license to rent the property out short term. So if you're looking to buy a property that you absolutely need to rent out to recoup some of the costs, then you need to know that property has to have a first occupation license, that to therefore get the tourist license to rent short term. Long term is not a problem, but short term you have to have a tourist license, and without that, websites like booking.com and Airbnb, you have to show that tourist license. So it's really important to have for that as well.
Okay, we've had a question from Lynn. Could you explain anything special you need to know if you plan to rent out your holiday home? I know that while you're thinking about the answer, we used to get roughly 60% people were looking for retirement in Spain, and about 40% for holiday homes. But now the holiday home number's gone up. So I know lots of people are looking to just get that extra bit of rental money to help pay for it. What are the implications of that?
Well, first of all, exactly what Sharon just said. If you're going to be doing short-term rentals, then you will need to get a tourist license for that. You will need specific paperwork for the property in order to do so. And then it is also very dependent on the specific town hall that's covering the areas. And if you're in a community, what those community rules are in terms of being able to do short-term rentals. So it's a case of checking out the property is able to be rented out the way that you want it. Now, if you think in terms of normal, if you're looking at high volume rentals, you're looking at very tourist areas in the first place, so they're very much geared up towards having the tourist license and being able to process fairly quickly. When you've got a more rural property out of the way, then it needs to be checked more carefully beforehand, just to make sure there aren't any regulations locally that you can't do so. But again, you could do some of this research beforehand. When you are renting a property out to license, you do need to be aware that you need to be making a tax return on that income in Spain. The other thing, which is a good point, is if somebody's looking at the non-lucrative visa, which obviously means that you can't work in Spain, it doesn't give you that right. You can still rent out a property or part of your property. That's not a problem for you to be able to do and still be within the realms of the non-lucrative visa.
So if you buy a property in Spain and you buy next door as well, can the rental income from the property count towards the 27,000 euros that you need to stay there?
As I understand, initially the income needs to come from outside.
Okay, right. Okay, that's interesting. Okay, we do keep sending your questions through, because we've got we still got plenty of time left on that rental question. Trevor, if you've got income going both ways, so you've got rental income coming back, or you're perhaps paying for maintenance on the other side, how would that be organized? Have you got some sort of product for making that easier?
Yeah, absolutely. The again, we're here to help you with money transactions of all sizes. So we'll often get customers who will be sending money for living. Say they're living out in Spain permanently. They may have their primary wealth sat here in the UK, so they may be sending a pension across every month. It could be that they're sending savings across for living costs or that kind of thing. Or indeed, as you say, if they've got a property out in Spain and perhaps they're receiving rental income in euros and want to repatriate it back to sterling. So yeah, we're here to help with transactions of all sizes. We do have some really good repeat payment products to try and make things easier. So for example, lots of customers who will have UK pensions but wanting to transfer it across to their Spain account for living, we can set that up for them in an automated fashion. So that means that we will effectively do an exchange every month for them. The pension will come out of their UK bank and get paid to us, and we'll send it straight onto their Spanish bank. So each month we'll do that in an automated fashion, so they don't have to necessarily go and make one transaction every single month. We set it up once and leave it running so that they know that they've got all their bills covered in their Spanish bank account without having to go through the administration challenges each month. So we do that for an awful lot of customers. And it's a really good product, very, very quick, very easy, and yeah, just saves so much time.
Okay. Now, in terms of the kind of properties that one can buy at certain budgets, are you in a very, I know certain areas are much more expensive, and there's no point in me turning up on your doorstep with a very low budget, Shireen, but what would you say is a decent starting budget in your area for a 2-bedroom apartment, and also for like a larger villa?
As I mentioned, the area that we cover is so big that the starting prices range so much. We tend to say starting price really on the coast is around 200,000, even for a 2-bedroom apartment. 200,000, yeah. And that can be that will be sort of in the area of West Estepona, La Duquesa, Manilva kind of area. That area there offers fantastic value for money properties. There's a beautiful marina in La Duquesa, and Estepona is booming at the moment anyway, doing really, really well. And so that's one area. If you're looking at being closer to the airport, for example, places like Torremolinos, Fuengirola and Benalmádena, they have this incredible train connection to Malaga, and so therefore a lot of it, and the prices there tend to be quite higher because the amenities, everything is you know, and of course Marbella is very expensive, but there's loads of different areas that we can introduce you to, so that's not a problem. In terms of villas, again, if it's a villa on the coast, I would say 500,000 is the starting price. If you're willing to go back inland a little bit, then of course we can find you maybe something less than that. Yeah, we are on the Costa del Sol and we are more expensive than the Costa Blanca or other costas, but even agents in those areas will admit that the infrastructure and everything that we have to offer on the coast, and the fact that it's been a popular coastline for so long, it means it's really geared up for all year usage. It's, as I say, we may be more expensive, but the weather is better, so that you can use your property all year round, or you can rent your property all year round. So it kind of swings and roundabouts really, in terms of value. So it's all about location, 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 as we always say.
Okay. Now, when you've bought, I know that it tends to be you tend to get a much more all-round service from a estate agent in Spain than the UK agent, who's really just to sell you the property. Mm-hmm. So what other sort of things do you help clients out with?
Yeah, I mean, from the initial, obviously, organization of the trip itself, after the purchase, for example, last week I had clients that came out and said, I don't want to do any work to the property. I don't want to do any work to the property. I want a property that I can move into with my toothbrush, and that's all I want. And funnily enough, they bought a house, fantastic location, but they're going to have to do a complete reform inside. And that was their decision. We saw 15 villas in a period of 2 days. And you know, and they didn't know the area at all, but they soon understood which areas were better than others and which locations were better. And I steered them, but not putting my opinions on them, just steered them. And they finally went for a property that was in one of the best locations, walking distance to San Pedro, which is a gorgeous little village on the coast. And because of that, so afterwards, in answer to your question, I will be taking 3 builders there to do 3 quotes for the work they want doing. I will do that with them, for them, when they're there, when they're not there. We supply cleaners, or we can help find cleaners. We can help find management, whether it's for a full rental service, or whether it's just holding a key for your tenants to come in, filling your fridge with food and so on. For anything you need. As I say, I've been living there for 23 years. I've project managed, I've been living there for a lot longer actually, but in real estate for 23 years, project managed whole developments for clients. I've got them nannies, I've got them whatever they need is the answer to that. Yeah. Okay, brilliant.
Now, one thing that we are often asked, and actually I'm still a bit confused about, is the whole notary process. Emma, just explain what a notary does, and perhaps more specifically what a notary doesn't do, and just how that process works.
The notary is something obviously we're not familiar with in the UK, because it's not something that is used, but for any transfer of property, and it is required to be notarized. It is a formal qualification that they have to do in order to do this, and they have a lot of responsibility in terms of what documents that they are signing under their name. In terms of this is property purchases, changes in deeds, inheritances, wills, all of these formal documents always have to go through a notary before then getting inscribed into property registry afterwards.
Okay, now we've had a very specific question, so we'll see if we can get an answer for it. It's from Brenda, who asked, do you know the average cost of a bungalow in Almeria? Bit off your bit, it's a bit between where both of you are, but if we can give a rough idea to Brenda, I think it would be helpful. I'm going to have a stab at anywhere from 80,000.
Yeah, I would say, yeah, anything up from that. Much more properties available for that sort of price range than our area.
Is bungalow a term though? What do people refer to a bungalow?
We in the business, because we're all English speaking, but I would one level villa, single story villa,
or one of 2-story apartments. And I've seen their bungalow 1 and bungalow 2 being above it.
Oh, really? Okay.
It's a British term. It's not a Spanish term.
Yeah.
We don't really promote them much, but I mean, there's always the option of a park home for people who are on a very low income. Well, no, if they have very low income, then they can't live there permanently, as Emma will point out. But if they've got the income but haven't got the capital, perhaps there's always the park home option, which is still a very popular option, aren't they?
They are, and there's a couple of very popular TV series following them.
Oh, really? I'm busy during the daytime, unfortunately, so I don't get to see them. No,
it is up and down the coast. You have many different park homes. There are a lot around, and they
can offer a really fantastic lifestyle. You can just go and.
I know of one being built in the Granada area, but even those are sort of 150, 170,000. So it depends what level you're looking at. So
yeah. Okay. Just to open out a kind of more general question, firstly to Emma, are there any things that people don't ask and should do? What are the common mistakes that people make that they perhaps aren't aware of?
I would always say when you're thinking of buying in Spain, we like to talk to people from really early on, so that you just think in terms of all of your plans, because it's not just about the specific property purchase, it's about everything around it. What are you buying the property for? Where are you going to be buying? How much are you going to be looking to spend, obviously, for one thing, but what is it for? What is the intended purpose of it? Is it going to be rented out, so that you can start thinking in terms of those? Is it the idea of eventual residency? Having things in mind, such as making residency applications and where it needs to be and what timing you need to do in order to make sure you don't get stuck. I was to say a specific example was somebody that was in Spain. They were renting a property. As far as they're concerned, they're just going to do the non-lucrative visa, and Bob's your auntie, it's all done. But they hadn't taken into consideration that they had to go back to the UK and do the application, have all of the paperwork in, hand their passport in with their application, and then wait for possibly a month before they could come back again. So, that they didn't have all of the arrangements made for staying in the UK for that possible length of time. So, as I say, it's just good to have a chat with people that can talk to you about the whole plan, so that you've got all of the right boxes ticked before you get started.
I would say one thing to think about as well is how easy a property would be to resell if ever you needed to do so. I do say to a lot of people, think about it if you ever need to go back, or if you need to, how easy would it be to resell? And it's something Emma said earlier on as well. If you want a property to rent out and you want a good income from that, then you need to buy somewhere which is going to attract that kind of tourists. So buying something in the middle of nowhere isn't necessarily going to get you the best income. You might like it, but yeah.
Trevor, one for you. I know this is the question that everybody in currency hates, but it's the one that we all want to know. What are you seeing as the longer term prospects for sterling against the and also we have some Americans online too. So firstly, the pound against the euro, and secondly the US dollar against the euro.
Sure. I mean, as you say, Chris, I mean, to be frank, if I had that crystal ball, I probably wouldn't be sat here talking to you this morning. I'd probably be on a beach in the Caribbean somewhere. But yeah, I think that, I mean, the UK is in for some serious turmoil, I would suggest, over the next couple of years. Inflation rates are incredibly high. One would expect interest rates to continue to surge. With that typically comes sterling strength, because typically one would expect inflows of sterling into the UK to invest in UK stocks, bonds, all that kind of stuff. Funnily enough, some of the economic sensitive stock has actually increased this week. Travel stocks, for example, British Airways, parent company IAG, EasyJet, etc., all seeing pretty significant increase in stock prices this week. But to be frank, I mean, where we currently are in terms of sterling euro exchange rate, it's not a bad place to be. If you look at where we were in September, sure, there was a flash crash down at about 107, but if you look at sort of people looking at 108s, 109s, 110s, currently where we are, 114s, 115s, so it's not a bad spot to be. So in reality, if you're thinking about moving to Spain and genuinely currency is in your mind in terms of whether that would push you to go and complete on something or make an offer on something, etc., I really don't think we're in a bad spot at all from a currency perspective, considering how bad the economic outlook looks for the time being. So if it were me, it certainly wouldn't be hindering my plans. It would probably be speeding up my plans. So I could go and spend a bit more time out in Spain and enjoy some of the niceties. So that'd be it on a sterling euro basis. And again, I would urge anyone that is concerned about the currency, prospective currency movements over the next few months and onwards, if you think that is going to impact your property purchase, do make sure that you're talking to us early, because we will be able to help you understand the risks and the prospective upticks and downticks. Sterling dollar, I mean, what do we say about the UK and America at the minute? I mean, America's obviously going through an unusual time, midterms going on. Inflation actually looked like it fell this week, which in theory again should be dollar negative, sterling positive. But again, if you look comparatively speaking over the last 12 months, 2 years, etc., if Americans looking to invest in Europe in second homes or indeed investment property, I mean, what an incredible spot to be. It's easy to get greedy and say, okay, well, I'm not quite at the bottom of the market or the top of the market, whichever way you're looking at it. But comparatively speaking, for the last 2 years, 3 years, I mean, what an amazing time to be an American buyer looking in Europe. You get so much more euros for your dollars.
Okay. Thinking about those economic indicators, I know that we had 3 various different measures of UK house prices, and they're starting to come down. That's not the case in Spain, I believe. Because you didn't have that massive rise, you haven't had the fall. So how are things going in price rises in Spain, Sharon?
I would say that it's not so much the price increases, it's the speed at which good properties sell at. It's a much safer market for us, because one of the reasons we had the crash in the past was because the mortgages. So people were getting 100, 110% mortgages and walking away from them if there was any sign of financial difficulty. Now, the Central Bank of Spain will not allow any of the commercial banks to lend anything more than 70% to non-residents. And in reality, they're actually only lending 55 to 65% to non-residents. So there's a big chunk of deposit that clients have to put down to buy. So they're not going to just walk away from hundreds and hundreds of properties left empty and so on. That's just not the case. So to me, it feels a much more, and as I say, I've gone through a crash, I've gone through booms. It feels a lot more level, a lot more settled, and a lot safer market than before. Yeah, it's
okay. Excellent. Okay, well, we've got no more questions from the floor, and we've got plenty more sessions coming up about Spain. I know we've got one coming up very shortly about viewing trips, and then we've got one shortly coming up a bit later this afternoon about mortgages. So thank you for your insights to the panel, for sharing your knowledge with us today, and also to our viewers for listening in and coming up with your questions. Thank you for your time. Do head over to our panelist booths, and some of them also have round tables, which is a new thing we're trying this time. So do sit in on those round tables and get more of a one-to-one going. So thank you to our panelists, and good luck in your property buying in Spain. Thank you.
Thanks all. Have a great day.
Bye.